Damien from Marketing Food Online. In this video, we're going to get into a handful of great subscriber Q&As, and we're going to get to it right now. So I'm going to get right into your questions. In this video, we're going to do a subscriber Q&A, and I am excited because lately I've actually received a ton of feedback and more questions than on average than I actually normally get. So I wanted to get into it. I'm going to do actually one video a week just to give you a heads up. I want to do a Q&A question. One of the videos throughout the week will actually be a subscriber Q&A. So I want to definitely encourage you guys to continue to ask questions. As always, I love to answer them because it helps out more than just the one asking it. It helps probably a multitude of other subscribers. And tonight I actually have some really super great questions about being online and some questions about some cottage food laws that are actually going to be changing in some of the states. So I want to hop right into it. If you see me gazing down here, I'm just looking at the questions. I want to get right to it, and we will get started. So let's hop into it. The first question, I try not to use full names. I just don't want to disclose the full names. And if I do use a name, and if I say it incorrectly, I apologize. But this one's pretty easy. It's Mary. So Mary actually had asked a question on one of my videos about Amazon FBA. And before I answer the question really quick, Amazon has a service. Of course, you're probably familiar with Amazon, but they have a service called FBA. And FBA stands for Fulfillment by Amazon. What that means is that you can sell a product on Amazon's website, right? And I'm going to break it down really in the most simplest explanation. So you actually can take your product, send it to them. They'll put it in their warehouse, okay? They're going to warehouse it. And then when a customer comes to buy it, they will fulfill it. They'll pull the product out, they'll scan it, they'll box it, ship it, pack it, all that good stuff. But they do charge a fee. Now, that fee for the service of an FBA is a little more pricier than it would be if you fulfilled the order yourself. But it's a great way to build up kind of almost like a retail store for yourself, because you could send out a ton of different products and they basically warehouse it and then just ship it to the customers. And you don't have to do anything other than keep the fulfillment going and replenish the product as it sells. Now, so with that being said, Mary had asked, so does Amazon package the item? This is in regards to a food product. So does Amazon package these items for you and they ship them to the customers? And do you have to have them ready to ship in different quantities? She was a little bit confused about what is it exactly that Amazon does for you. So as far as sending food products to Amazon, they would need to be completed, packed, and ready to go to the customer. They don't necessarily co-pack or private label for you. They don't do that end of it. Now, there are some labeling features and options that they do offer, but it's not in regards to putting together a product. Like if I had a bag and I wanted to create a trail mix, do I send all this stuff to them and they create the trail mix for me and bag it and create the product for me, the final product to sell to customers? No, they don't necessarily do that. No. Now, in regards to food products, you want to make sure that it's completely packaged, sealed up correctly, and has all of the traditional guidelines of information such as ingredients, the allergen warning. You'd have to have a label on it as far as the product, the net weight. Everything that you would have to have a product in a retail store would be the same information you need to have on your product when it goes to Amazon. And if you don't have a barcode, there is actually a way that you can send it in where Amazon will create a barcode for them to inventory and to put your product into the warehouse so they can pull it out. So they do offer that as well. So yes, you can definitely use Amazon FBA for food products, and we do. We have about 45 to 50 items, I think it is. And we ship it out to them. But they don't actually package it for us per se. We have to create the product, and it's got to be finalized. So next up. Okay, so this is actually really interesting. This is the first time I've been asked this question. And it's interesting. So do you have any videos in regards to selling frozen meat door to door, like in a truck? No, actually I don't. One of the most famous businesses that do that actually is Schwan's, or Schwan's, actually they may pronounce Schwan's Meats, and I believe they're actually still around today. Here, I'll give you some pros and cons to this idea. I'm very familiar with the concept. I know exactly what it is. When I was actually younger, we had a Schwan's truck used to come in our neighborhood and kind of solicit business for frozen meats. The thing with this is that it's very difficult to create trust with a customer, if you don't create a reputation, or if you don't have some type of website with a great amount of reviews with people who've experienced this concept of driving around with frozen meat and in a truck. There's a lot of services online now. Omaha Steaks is one of the biggest companies that do this. They sell fresh meats that are frozen, of course, and ship them with dry ice, but they don't go door to door per se. So customer orders it through the internet and then has it shipped to their house like within 2 days or what have you. The challenge with door to door in a meat truck is the idea that you got to understand the perspective of the consumer. Today, a lot of customers will just simply go to a grocery store and buy their meats. Preferably, specifically a grocery store they trust, that they have built up a trust with as a consumer to a retailer. When you drive around in a truck, I don't want to say it sounds random, but a lot of people don't trust trucks that are just driving to the neighborhood soliciting frozen slabs of meat that they can purchase. Now, does that mean you can't do it? No, not necessarily. But what I'm saying is you need to kind of think of it from the perspective of the consumer or the customer. And this is where your marketing, advertising, and promoting skills need to come into play, because you want to build a relationship, a rapport. If you were to go to a neighborhood and knock on door to door and try to solicit people to sell steaks out of your truck, you should have some type of information behind that other than just your truck driving around. You need to build that trust. And that's something that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to do before you can even get sales. I've seen that when I was a kid, but Schwann's was something that had been around for quite some time. They have a rapport. They have a built-up relationship with a lot of retailers they used to have, actually. And then from there, a lot of people recognize the brand. So building up a brand and having people trust that brand is something that's paramount and so important if you're going to try to pull off this idea of selling frozen meat from a truck. So can it be done? Of course it can be. But you want to create that trust. And that's going to take time and a lot of work from the idea of a marketing and advertising perspective before you get customers to really buy from you. So that was actually a great question. I've never had anybody ask me about that. Now, do you really have, Zachary, I got a question from Zachary. Do you really have to incorporate? Wouldn't an LLC be enough? Yes, an LLC is a limited liability corporation, is what LLC stands for. It's a type of entity classification. It's a type of formally incorporating yourself, actually, as a business with an LLC. When you get to the point where this is where the tax questions come into play with what type of business you have, the type of income your business has, and what your tax advisor would advise you. I am not a tax accountant, so I can't give you advice on that. But I can tell you that we're still an LLC, but we're looking into the different C corporations and S corporations, which is a different entity classification, as it's known. Okay, so incorporating as a S corp or a C corp has a lot of different tax ramifications, but it's really dependent upon what's beneficial for you and what's going to be better for you as a business selling food, and how much you're making. Are you a home-based business or are you in a commercial facility? And there's a lot of variables that come into play whether or not it's beneficial. So I would take that question to your accountant and see which one would be best. But to answer the question immediately, yes, an LLC is an easy way to form a business, and you'll be legal, of course. And then that way you can at least take a step forward and start your business and get going. Down the road, you can definitely change the type of entity classification that you have. So, great question as well. Yes, LLCs work perfect, and that's what we're still an LLC. So yes. So now here's Gene. Gene had a question, and this is actually great because I don't get a lot of questions about cottage food law, but I do have a lot of subscribers that watch our cottage food videos, starting from home, of course, if you're not familiar with that term, a food business. In September 1st, actually Texas signed into, excuse me, the SB 572, I believe it is. SB 572 is a cottage food law that they will be kind of adding to or updating starting September 1st. Now, there's a lot of great things. Texas is one of the best states in the entire country to start a food business from if you're doing it from home. Now, what they did is, before they kind of updated this, they limited the sale of your products to a geographical area, so like to a certain amount of location, right? So they actually lifted that and allowed you to sell anywhere in the state of Texas. So if you were in Houston, you could actually sell pretty much anywhere if you're based in Houston. you could sell a food product anywhere in the state. Before they updated this, and it goes into effect in September 1st, you couldn't do that. It was very limited. A lot of states actually adopted the same scenario, and they still use that to where either within your county, within your city, or within a certain a mile radius of where your home is that you're producing food, they limited your ability to sell, which is it's kind of good and bad. I think there's probably more bad to that than good. But in Texas, they actually lifted that, and they now are going to allow you to sell anywhere you want, which is fantastic. Now, this was the question. The specific question that Gene had was not about the bill itself, but selling a product online. Many cottage food laws in certain states allow you to have a website and sell and make a transaction from me to you, a customer, right? And you buy something from me, but then you got to deliver it in person. There has to be some aspect of the transaction done in person. So that's kind of what Gene was asking about. He didn't understand or kind of get some clarification on, is that it says, he's a little extremely confused that you could sell a product online, but you have to have, it has to be done in person. So yes, what they mean by this is that with the updated version of the law, you could create a website and you could sell to somebody in the northern part of the state and you're in the deep, deep southern part of Texas, but some part of that transaction has to be in person. That's kind of, it doesn't make sense. It's good to do that, but it doesn't make sense from the transaction perspective, because then you have to either deliver it in person or you have to accept the funds in person, or some part of that, you and the customer that's doing the transaction have to have some type of exchange or interaction with each other. So now, the bill itself doesn't specify what part of interaction that is. It just says that any aspect of the transaction has to be in person. So deliver it in person, pick up the cash or the money in person, and then deliver the product some other way. Some form of that has to be done one-on-one with you and your customer. Now, one other thing that's really interesting about the Texas law is that they've added frozen fruits and veggies, frozen fruits and vegetables, that you could actually create a business from home and sell frozen fruit and vegetables to a customer, which is kind of interesting. I guess there's no specifics on where you're sourcing it. So if you have like a big farm and you chop up the fresh fruit and you're putting it in a bag and you're freezing it, you could have one heck of a business if they're allowing you to do fruits and vegetables now. So that's actually pretty big. That's a pretty big step. And they did not add any additional regulatory stipulations or boundaries, things that would limit you from a regulatory standpoint. They didn't add anything else to that law, which is great. So at least they didn't tie up your hands. So it seems like they're taking a lot of big steps to promote businesses operating from home. So Texas is one of the great places to do that. So Gene, I hope that answers your question. You have to have some aspect of that transaction. You've got to be in person. So I don't really quite understand it. Having the ability to sell a product through the internet, but then if you're 800 miles away, I don't see how you would have to, how could you transact that? Doesn't make any sense. Okay, so next one up. So I have a question on how many ingredients I should put on my label. Is there any limit or numbers, because I don't want to put all of my secret ingredients on the label? Okay, unfortunately, there are no such thing as secret ingredients. I don't want to burst your bubble. But every ingredient that is in a food product that you're selling to someone to consume has to legally be on the label. Now, with that being said, you're not giving away the secret to how you make it. The recipe and all of that is not part of the ingredient list. I could make a delicious pasta dinner and I could list all the ingredients, but you don't know the size, the measurements, the process to make it, how long to cook it, and all of that stuff. That's part of the recipe or the process to produce. So you don't need to add that on there, but you do have to put all of the ingredients. Why? Well, number one, it's FDA regulation that you have to put all the ingredients, but you don't have to put the process on there. And the other thing is that's really scary is if you don't put all of the ingredients and there happens to be something someone's allergic to, they get sick and die, you're going to have a huge lawsuit on your hands, and a big problem if you don't have fines and some other things, and even excuse me, charged with some charges for doing that by keeping out a certain ingredient. You don't want to do that because someone may have an allergy to one of the ingredients that you left off, that you didn't put, and if they get sick, that falls on you, and you could get into some serious trouble. So, listing your ingredients, you're not giving away anything to people. They just need to know what's in it because, maybe my son might be allergic to cinnamon, and you didn't put that on the label, and he gets sick. That's going to be a problem. If someone is going to consume something and get ill, you want to make sure that all of the ingredients are on there. And normally how it's done is from the largest to least. So if you're producing a baked good, a cookie, and I use this as an example all the time, chocolate chip cookies and flour is probably the biggest ingredient, right? In bulk, flour, then egg and milk and sugar and on and on. You want to use the largest ingredient first down to the least. But please, please understand that you definitely need to put your ingredients on there, along with an allergen statement to make sure that people are aware of what other ingredients you may be dealing with. Plus the FDA requires that, okay? So you don't want to do that. You don't want to get yourself in trouble. All right, so that was a handful of great questions, and of course I have a list of them here. I'm going to wrap it up. It's been about 16 minutes, but as always, if you guys have more questions, let me know. I'm going to do, like I said, once a week, 15, 20-minute video, answer as many questions as I can get in there really quick. And as always, if you're not subscribed, do subscribe. If you have any other questions or need any consulting, we also have consulting available. We'll help you get your food product out there into the market. So I will wrap it up and see you guys on the next video. And if this video is helpful, take a look at these other ones right here. They're popping up everywhere. Those will help you out as well, and a handful of playlists that have a whole bunch of videos you can watch back to back. Take care.